What if your mom or dad was selfish? They made everything about themselves. They ignored your needs. They shamed you when you spoke up. And somehow you always ended up feeling like you were the problem. That sounds like narcissism. And maybe it was, but sometimes what looks like narcissism is something else. It could be addiction, bitterness, trauma. Some parents act like narcissists not because they're calculating, but because they're drowning. And here's why it matters. Narcissists don't change, but other people, if they get honest, they might. And when you know which one you're dealing with, it can unlock your understanding as to why they treated you as badly as they did. It's like your mind wants to know, right? And this can help you connect the dots between what happened and the things that you struggle with now. Now, when you grew up with a parent like this, it totally messes with your instincts. You probably learned to tiptoe around people's moods. You got used to not asking for anything. And even now, the idea of disappointing someone or being like too much, it can feel like a threat. Now, this is normal for people who grew up with parents who couldn't deal with them because their behaviors can look a lot like narcissistic abuse. And some people were raised by narcissists, they were. But a lot of people were raised by parents who were just selfish or numbed out or drunk or consumed with their own pain. And that does matter because these days there's a trend of kind of slapping the word narcissist on every parent who fails their kids. But not everyone who hurt you is a narcissist, and this doesn't make the harm they did any less painful. But it means something in terms of their intent, okay? So my mom, was she a narcissist? Everything was definitely like about her all the time. And there were things she did concerning us kids that seemed only about making her look impressive. Not in the usual way, though, that I see in narcissist checklists. Remember, my parents were hippies, okay? And my mom worked on an Indian reservation where we lived. She had a lot of problems, but she was helping to implement an early childhood education program there. And a lot of people who lived there really loved her and befriended her, the parents, the other people that she worked with. And I'd say about 90% of the people there were Spanish speakers primarily. They went back and forth between speaking Spanish and English, and that's because we lived about an hour's drive from the Mexican border. So lots of people in our town spoke Spanish only. Most people could speak both. Some spoke Spanish only. And while all of us kids studied Spanish in school, I had like 4 years of it, my mom didn't know a word of Spanish. Literally, not one word. She'd try to speak Spanish, but she'd get everything mixed up with other languages that she'd once learned, like French and Norwegian, and nothing she said made any sense. But she'd wave her hands around and go, casa, or something. And she'd try to affect like a Spanglish accent. And that part really bugged me. It just really bugged me. It made me feel alienated. And there was something about it that was touching off my feeling of being totally neglected and rejected by her. And so she put this accent on her English words as if she were a Spanish speaker struggling to pronounce English. Okay, so that's weird, but not terrible, I guess, right? So she started pronouncing our names, my siblings and me, in the Spanish way. So my name's Anna, and she started calling me Ana. And same with my brothers and my sister. And I don't think anybody minded this fake persona so much. I mean, the Spanish speakers didn't mind. They loved her. Everybody loved her. It was like me. It was us kids who had a hard time with her. And a lot of people used to hang out at her house, her friends, and they'd come over and they'd all make green corn tamales when it was the season. And I'm really glad that we got to participate in that. And when she died, our house was stuffed with people. She had made so many friends. But this is like the thing when you had a mother who totally neglected you, who's so like beloved out there, and people would literally come up to me and go, "Oh, your mom is so amazing," or they'd say it in Spanish, and I'd have to sort of go, yeah. And it felt terrible because there was some quality of love and presence she was giving them that she didn't bring home to us. And by the way, they were incredibly cool and interesting people. I'm grateful to have grown up spending time with them. But when she started saying our names in her fake Spanish accent, something didn't feel right. like we were just being used as props so that she could get some weird form of validation. And it was this weird abandonment of our actual selves. Really, that's what it felt like. And it erased the fact that she gave birth to us and she named us. And she did that just so she could impress these other people in her life. Or that's what it felt like. And so, we all had the impression that she valued them more than her own children. And we were minors, by the way, just kids. And I thought maybe I was just being petty or like I imagined this. But after I grew up and moved away to California, she sent me a letter and written on the envelope. And then this was, back in the days when people sent things in the mail. So at least she was sending me stuff, but it started always having my name spelled with one N. My name is Anna, A-N-N-A. Her family's from Norway. It's the Norwegian way of spelling it. And in fact, when I was very little, she had a whole thing that she wanted to pretend that she was Scandinavian and she would affect that accent and call me Anna Maria. And so, you know what I mean? It was weird. So yeah, she would send me mail and it would have A-N-A and have my name on the envelope. And then I would complain about this spelling of my name and she would pretend she didn't know what I was talking about and go like, oh, I don't know. Are there two N's? With an accent. So it was like this whole trip she was in for several years. And it gave me that same weird gut punch feeling. It always did, that she didn't know me, she didn't want to know me. And so then much later, I learned about narcissism. And I found out that what she did there was possibly a narcissistic move. But here's the complication. She was a serious alcoholic. She was drunk every day. She was drunk at work. She would get drunk at she'd get up at 4 a.m. to set her hair and drink and play solitaire before work. And then she'd get into work at 8 a.m. And, narcissists have a relatively high rate of alcoholism. I've looked into this. And alcoholics often demonstrate narcissistic traits, even if they don't have actual NPD. I think she was desperate for friendship and love, like so many alcoholics are, and really like so many people are. And between the drinking and her quest to be seen as interesting and accepted with these other people, that she did in fact act in a selfish and neglectful manner. And she died relatively young. She never changed. She did not change. She didn't become loving. She didn't get to know me in a way that felt real to me. And I was left to figure out for myself if she was incapable of caring about us, or was she blocked by the way alcoholism distorted her personality from caring about us. And it's the not caring that really hurt me. And it's why I ended up with complex PTSD, her neglect, while other people who had even more trauma than I did, sometimes seem to be totally, quote, normal. If you're wondering, by the way, if you have common signs of early trauma, be sure you get a copy of my quiz. I'll put it in the top row of the description section below the video there. It's free, and you might want to, take a look at that and see if it matches your experience, especially if you're trying to unpack whether your parent was a narcissist or just troubled. So I felt like I needed to know. And so I did some research and I learned what to look for. And I thought, you might want to know this too. It looks like this, all right? A narcissistic parent might have punished you for being your own person. If you expressed your opinions, your beliefs, your style, they didn't just push back. They took it personally. They mocked you or guilt-tripped you or called you ungrateful, like your individuality was an attack on them. Whereas a troubled parent, I say troubled, meaning not an actual narcissist, but just showing behaviors because of trouble in their life. A troubled parent might have disagreed with you or even tried to pressure you, but they didn't treat your identity like something that had to be shut down. All right. Now, a narcissistic parent might have demanded loyalty and given you none. You were expected to show up for them, fix things, take their side, but when you needed something, they were gone, or they punished you for even asking. A troubled parent, on the other hand, might have been unreliable, they might have disappointed you, or made everything about them, but they weren't turning love into a transaction. All right, a narcissistic parent might have written reality to protect themselves. You brought up something that hurt you and suddenly it didn't happen, that did not happen, or it was your fault anyway, or they were just joking. They twisted the story until you started questioning your own memory. A troubled parent, on the other hand, might have avoided hard conversations. They might have minimized things, but they didn't erase it to make themselves the hero or the victim. Okay, here's another difference. A narcissistic parent might have reacted to your emotions with disgust or rage. When you cried, they got irritated. When you were angry, they got mean. And when you were vulnerable, they shut down. The only emotion they tolerated was admiration for them, right? Now, on the other hand, a troubled parent might have gone silent, they might have pulled away, but they weren't trying to make you feel weak or ridiculous just for feeling something. Yeah, this all gave me so much to think about. All right, a narcissistic parent, as I understand it, might have used love as leverage. When you complied, you got warmth. When you didn't comply, they turned cold, and they reminded you of everything they'd done for you, like you owed them. So a troubled parent, conversely, might have been inconsistent. They might have used guilt, but they weren't strategically turning love off and on to keep control. All right, here's another one. A narcissistic parent might have humiliated you to feel powerful. They made jokes at your expense. They told your secrets. They used your pain to get attention and sympathy or control. A troubled parent, on the other hand, might have embarrassed you or been chaotic or careless, but they weren't trying to dominate you through shame. A narcissistic parent might have made your success about them and your failures about you. If you did well, they took credit. If you struggled, they blamed your personality, never the circumstances, never their behavior. You were either their trophy or their scapegoat. Now, a troubled parent in that situation might have made things about themselves sometimes, but there were flashes of pride for your sake, not just theirs. So if your parent acted narcissistic, it's normal to want to figure out what exactly was wrong with them. But unfortunately, you'll probably never get a clear answer. Not from them, not from a therapist, not from this list exactly, not even from yourself. And if you keep chasing a label, trying to get all the evidence to line up so you can finally make sense of what happened, you'll miss what's right in front of you. So in my mother's case, I think she was desperate for friendship and love, like so many alcoholics are, like so many people are. And between the drinking and her quest to be seen as special and to be accepted with these people she admired, she kind of forgot about us kids. But she wasn't trying to annihilate us. She had narcissistic traits, but I don't think the label narcissist sums up who she was. I may never know. I don't know. She's been gone for over 30 years. But either way, it still affected me, just like it affected you when your parents were selfish in your life. And healing now means focusing here, not getting stuck chasing a diagnosis for other people, because whatever it is, it doesn't change you. Your healing is going to be centered on you, on the parts of you that still get triggered in relationships where you want to hide your feelings or fight to be loved, or you keep finding yourself with friends and partners who don't get you. And this is where the healing is needed, and you can do it. If I can do it, you can do it. And if you want to know how I did it, I created a whole course with my radical but simple approach to healing. It's called Healing Childhood PTSD. Something like 14,000 people have taken this course. And if you want to check out the course, you can find it down in the description section below this video. You'll need to click the link that says more. Can you see that below the video? A couple of links and then the word more. You click that word and bloop, the whole thing opens up for you. And there you'll find links to the oodles of things that I have for you. Some free, some are paid. Now, if your parent was narcissistic, they're probably never going to change. And if they were just troubled, they still might not change. But either way, you don't have to keep your healing on hold until they become somebody else, because you're free now. And with great freedom, as who is it, Yoda says, comes great responsibility. It'll be tempting to fall back into a, them focus. What was wrong with them? What did they do? But everything good in your life needs your focus back here, where you are right now, where you have all the capacity you need to become whole and happy and real. If you like this video, I've got one that you're going to love right here, and I'll see you very soon. Today, what's happening is your own behavior. And the worse you were hurt back then, the more likely it is that you have a pattern of hurting yourself now.